With the advent of e-bikes, gravel bikes, and endurance frames, there are plenty of comfortable options for riding. Are Recumbent bikes still relevant in 22? Let's find out what I like and dislike about my Recumbent and how I use it on a regular basis.
Hello everyone. One of the really fun things you can do around here that is very adapted is a recumbent bicycling. And I have owned a recumbent bike for 20 years. I've actually owned several of them. So some of the points I'm going to mention about recumbents are going to be well known. Some hopefully will be a bit new. There are things that they're good at, there are things that they're not at all good at. And we're going to talk through this. The first thing that you might notice is I'm on a trainer. And I found that recumbent bikes are outstanding trainer bikes. And the reason is that you really maximize the effect of the recline seat. And personally, on a trainer, on a diamond bike, the trainer locks the bike in place. Most of them do anyways, not all of them, but most of them do. And when my bike is locked in place, I'm missing a little bit the oscillation that I naturally have during pedaling. And within a relatively short period of time, it hurts my joints. Whereas on a recumbent, I can go forever. So that's one. The second thing, which is pretty obvious, is you have actually more choices in the type of clothes that you can wear. The next thing, which is really nice, is it drafts behind another bike extremely well. The next thing that is probably well known, but that I do experience, is that in a certain set of conditions, now this is the key, it's not true all the time, but in a certain set of conditions, it's very fast. It's actually even faster than I thought. Now, the caveat, and we'll see a little bit in the drawback, is it's not true all the time. The next thing that I found quite interesting is still on topic of speed. I think speed is nice, and because your sensory receptors on a recumbent are a lot lower to the ground, the sensation of speed is actually enhanced compared to a diamond frame bike. And so when you go at the same speed, your actual sensations are superior there. They're more pleasant. You feel like you're going faster. The next two topics, which are a little bit more specific to this bike, is number one, I really like the front wheel drive. My previous bike was a rear wheel drive. There was a lot of chain, there was a lot of chain guides, and there was a lot of rattling and weight. And the front wheel drive puts the drivetrain very, very close to the actual spindle and the crank. And I just find it a lot more logical, a lot more efficient. Finally, I really like the swivel bar. This little bar here for steering, that is a very nice setup. You can vary your position a little bit, your elbows are nicely tucked in, and for a mount and dismount, this is great. I can lift up the bar while I ride, it allows me to lean forward, dismount very well, so this is a super good advantage. We are now on the road, riding safely. The first drawback of a recumbent bike is actually something that I haven't seen in a lot of videos, and it's the fact that you're leaning backwards, and in a sunny place in the world like Florida, the sun is right in your face. And on a sunny day, there is no amount of sunglasses and visors and sun protection that will actually make me comfortable. The second problem of a recumbent bike is obviously as soon as you have incline, it's a lot harder to climb than a normal bike. The third inconvenience that I see on these types of bikes, which I haven't seen in many other reviews, is it lacks the equivalent of a saddle forward and back position. So the seat typically can be adjusted in tilt, so they adjust your hip angle. The mast or the frame can be elongated or shortened, so that's the equivalent of saddle height. But there is nothing that changes typically the elevation of your crank compared to your seat, and that's the equivalent of your saddle on its rails. And it just so happens that I have fairly long femurs, and so I really struggle to find recumbent bikes for me that don't have the equivalent of a saddle too far forward type syndrome. And that puts a lot of pressure on the front of my knees. The next drawback probably makes a lot of sense, is well known, but can be a little bit limiting. And this is that it is not quite as nimble, flexible, and the visibility is quite less than on a diamond frame. And this makes these bikes a lot harsher and a lot more delicate to handle when there is traffic, when there's cars around, because you don't see them. It's not as easy to stop and go. It's very hard to hover. You know, in the city, on the diamond frame, the ability to hover, go at very, very low speed for a long period of time to let an intersection clear, or if you're at a light and you should never, you know, burn a red light, so you have to be able to be at a standstill for a while. All of this is a lot harder on a recumbent. It's very, very technical to handle the recumbent when you have traffic. Okay. The last drawback of a recumbent bike, and for me it is by far the most limiting, is that it transmits a lot of vibration in the upper body and into the brain. On a diamond frame, you only have the saddle and the handlebar that are and the pedals that are points of contacts, and that's all far away from your shoulder. And as soon as you have some bumps on the road, you can compensate by standing up and using your limbs as an additional dampening system. Here, it all goes through, and this can be very significant when you have a bike that you choose to have, you know, aggressive tires and so on and so forth on. If the road is not perfectly smooth, you know, I will, after just 30 minutes of riding, feel completely foggy, and my senses, you know, being very like a cotton balls. As a result, it very strongly limits the area where I can ride, because I have to know that the pavement is quite smooth. In addition, over time, I actually have detuned this bike to have less vibration transmission, but also less speed. So all in all, where does this leave us? The Recumbent is an outstanding bike in a very small set of conditions, and then has drawbacks in other areas which limit its operating window. So what do I use a recumbent bike for? When I bought my first recumbent, I really tried to optimize the area where it was good at and ride it on flat road with maximum speed. Over time, I found that I tend to use it more for relaxed riding, quite detuned from a speed perspective, but enhanced from a vibration and ergonomy perspective. And I really enjoy riding it just around neighborhoods, around closed trails with no traffic. And it ends up being my go have fun around and ride relaxed type of bike. And for that, it is very good.